After the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, having a land route to Alaska took on new urgency and led to a hasty engineering feat.
Build 1,500 miles of road in 8 months through the Alaskan-Canadian wilderness? You're kidding, right? But that is exactly what happened. In response to the attack on Pearl Harbor, President Roosevelt authorized the construction of a road to Alaska.
The effective defense of Alaska is of paramount importance to the defense of the continent. Alaska is most exposed to an attempt by the enemy to establish a foothold in North America.
The following year, after basic training in construction engineering, 11,000 men shipped north. More than a third came from 3 all-black regiments, the 93rd, the 95th, and the 97th Engineers.
The U.S. military built the Alaska-Alcan Highway through the harsh wildland of Canada and Alaska in just 8 months.
The weather was tough. The surrounding was awful. You go to a rugged range,
11,000 soldiers worked on the highway, including 4,000 African-American troops, whose contributions went unacknowledged for decades.
Black soldiers were rarely sent into combat, but rather were put into labor battalions at lower pay. The Alaska assignment was an unprecedented opportunity for pay and benefits equal to those of white soldiers. And black and white units were to work on the same project. That was practically unheard of. Work commenced in the winter of 1942 in 5 directions at once, paired units working independently. Conditions in the north were always harsh, and this was the coldest winter on record.
Lord, it was bitter cold. If you touch anything metal with your bare hands, you couldn't tear your skin loose. Clifton Monk.
Leather would freeze. We'd take galoshes, rubber galoshes, we called them Arctics, and we'd wear 3 full pairs of socks. We'd double up on pants. Corporal Donald Nolan.
For months on end, I couldn't get a real night's sleep. I had nightmares I was freezing to death. Unidentified soldier.
Summer wasn't much better. Trucks sank in melting permafrost, and giant mosquitoes dive-bombed in droves. The black engineers faced other challenges. General Simon Bolivar Buckner, head of the Alaska Defense, ordered the black soldiers confined to camp so they wouldn't socialize with locals. Even more frustrating, despite the superior training and experience of the 95th Black Engineers, their heavy equipment had been given to a less qualified unit. As a crowning blow, the Black Engineers were then supposed to improve the safety and durability of a road built by that same white unit.
The terrain was very rough, it was unstable, it would vibrate, which made it rather difficult for the bulldozers. The temperatures varied anywhere from 32 below zero down to 65 below zero.
Bulldozers would freeze to the ground, trucks would freeze to the ground, and then once you cut the motor off, you couldn't get any of them started.
On the Alaskan Highway, the black troops were housed in pyramidal cloth tents, while the white soldiers were in mason huts and housing some of the army bases. What protected the black soldiers inside of the tent, the frost was about an inch thick, which acted as insulation.
To build morale, their commander gave them a challenge. Build a bridge over the fast-moving, 300-foot-wide Sicannie Chief River.
This is going to be difficult. Take at least 5 days, maybe more. Are you up for it, men?
Piece of cake.
Oh, bet my paycheck we can do it in 4.
Yeah, man.
Sure we can do it.
Using only hand tools, they prepared the beams and plunged chest deep into the freezing water to set the trestles. Working round the clock, they finished ahead of schedule. Work on the highway continued. 8 months after construction started, the road was complete. Many in the military had doubted African-American engineers were up to the job.
From April 1942 until July 1943, black soldiers work on the 1,600-mile highway that will link Alaska, Canada, and the United States to supply Allied forces.
It was a great accomplishment. It's a great feat, and some compare it with building the Panama Canal.
I took a part in building what was considered one of the greatest engineering projects during the last century. Some people said it was second only to the Panama Canal.
And we did it in record time before they said we could do it.
It's taken 63 years for those people to realize that they had the best crew of men that they could have selected.
Planes for Russia at Fairbanks, Alaska. The first Russia-bound planes
Through a Lend-Lease program, the United States got 8,000 planes to Russia by way of the Alaskan Highway.
After the highway's completion, many of the black engineers were sent to active duty in Europe and the South Pacific, where they again performed superbly, negating the argument that African Americans were unfit for battle. Finally, in 1948, after pressure from leaders and veterans in the African American community, President Truman desegregated the armed forces, bringing greater equality to the military. But racial discrimination was still very much alive in the rest of America.
Leonard Larkins of New Orleans is one of the few surviving segregated soldiers who toiled on the Elcan.
At the time, I felt that it wasn't seem to me like it was nothing like serving for war or anything. It was seemed to me it was more like you were in jail or something doing some kind of work, you know.
The work was overseen by the son of a Confederate general, Simon Bolivar Buckner Jr. Black troops worked from the north, white troops from the south. Black soldiers not only endured clouds of mosquitoes, wild temperature swings that went from hot to sub-freezing weather, as well as marshy conditions, they were discriminated against.
Well, they had the big bulldozers and all that stuff. We had mostly picks and shovels and things to cut grass.
Larkins also recalls how he and his fellow soldiers weren't allowed to visit the small towns along the way. But once the 1,500-mile road was complete, it opened up more than the land link between Alaska and the lower 48 states.
This is the picture represent when the black soldier of the 97th met with the white soldier of the 18th from Canada, and they shook hands. And that, to us, this represents integration. 6
years later, President Truman integrated the military as blacks not only built highways, but fought in battle. Now, on the highway's 75th anniversary, the contributions of Larkins and other troops are being honored.
Just think, 75 years ago, he worked on Alaska Highway, and this is the first official time he's getting recognized.
The best thing I would say was to survive from it all.
During his visit back to Alaska, Larkins is hoping to finally visit some of the towns he missed seeing in the 1940s.